Okay, folks, we're supposed to be starting 4 o'clock on the public hearing aspect. We should have a cast of thousands here. Has yet to manifest itself.
We're at 500 ish, like that's about, where we should
We're looking for other people.
Hello, how are you? They're highly in the race.
It's October 24, 2019, and I call the study session of the Rowland Unified School District Board of Education to order. It is now 4 o'clock p.m. Dr. Mitchell, will you please do roll call?
Yes, absolutely. Carrie Chen.
Here.
Lynn Ebenkamp.
Here.
Angelena Pride. Present. David Malkin.
Present.
And Donna Friedman.
Here.
All board members are present.
Are there any changes or items to be pulled from the agenda?
None from staff.
May I have a motion to adopt the agenda of the board study session of Thursday, October 24, 2019?
I make a motion. I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All in attendance will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag by Board Vice President David M. Malkin.
Please rise. Face the flag over here. Your right hand over your heart and recite after me. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, David. Dr. Mitchell, are there any public comments? Please note, the public is welcome to provide comment to the board. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes unless extended or limited by vote of the board. A maximum of 20 minutes unless extended by the board is allocated for each subject discussed. The Brown Act open meeting regulations under which the board must operate do not allow board members to comment on non-agenda items or information you may bring up that are not in the agenda. Additionally, no action can be taken. However, the board may give direction to staff following a comment. Roy Humphreys.
Okay, good day. I'm Roy Humphreys, and thanks for all the good things you do. And I'm bringing in this part. It's an agenda item, but I have a lot to go for the when the agenda, the public meeting comes up. And this is to address a situation where on October 12th I had submitted a demand letter to Superintendent Mitchell, and I'll read it as I have previously noted. The handling of the CBR, that's California Board of Right to Act process, is an insult to the constituents of this district. You have willfully refused and failed to video record the public meetings and publish them so that the entire district could have the opportunity to engage the process. You have completely ignored the north side of the district by holding all of the meetings at the district office, and we're talking about the 4 scheduled required meetings by law, which is woefully inadequate, and this is a blatant act of exclusion. On behalf of the disenfranchised and excluded, it is demanded that you immediately, we'll discuss that term later, remedy this situation to be all-inclusive. Thank you.
Next, we will have a public hearing regarding the California Voting Rights Act and transition from an at-large to by trustee area-based voting system for school board members. The board took action and adopted Resolution SO 171801 on September 14, 2017 to transition to a vice trustee area electoral system commencing with the November 2020 election to ensure compliance with the California Voting Rights Act, CVRA. The board will holding the second a public hearing to receive input from the community on the criteria that will be utilized to establish the trustee area map and identify the trustee areas in which elections will be held in 2020 and 2022. Prior to the opening of the public hearing, Larry Kershaw from Cooperative Strategies will present information on the transition from at-large elections to by trustee area elections. I will turn it over to Dr. Mitchell at this time.
Thank you very much. And so I will invite Larry Kershaw to the podium, and I believe that we have, there it is, a clicker. Thank you. So that you can share your presentation.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you again for being here.
Dr. Mitchell. Good afternoon, members of the board. Have a brief presentation to go over to kind of set the stage for the public hearing. It's similar to, or maybe exactly the same as the one we had 2 weeks ago at the first pre-map public hearing, but just as a refresher, under the education code, there's 3 different ways that school boards can be elected. Current at-large method, from area method of election where the district is divided into different areas, but everybody still votes at large, and then the method that you're transitioning to, which is the by area method of election, where there's 5 different voting areas within the district. 1 member is elected from each area and only by the members of those respective areas. And that's the only method of election that is immune from challenge under the California Voting Rights Act. And so that's the method that you're transitioning to. California Voting Rights Act took effect back in 2003, and it prohibits the use of at-large elections where it can be shown that that method of election results in the impairment of members of protected classes, which are historical, racial, or ethnic minority groups in the country, from being able to influence the outcome of election because of racially polarized voting. And the board has, as we mentioned, taken action to transition away from the at-large method of election to a by trustee area method of election. This is the calendar of meetings that have been held so far at board meetings. So we held the first pre-map public hearing October 10th, and today is second pre-map public hearing. I know there's also been some community meetings that have occurred at different sites across the district. Where Dr. Mitchell, you've gone out and met with the community groups to talk about the pre-map public hearing stage. So those have also occurred. We haven't put them on the calendar yet. We'll add those just so we can be transparent about the meetings that have occurred. The next step is on November 14th. We'll have the initial scenarios available for a public hearing at the board meeting. 7 days prior to that, so on or about November 7th, those will be posted to the district's website for the public to see, and that's required 7-day public review period prior to the public hearing on maps. We will then have a second public hearing on December 12th, and at that time, the board could select one of those maps to move forward with and hold an additional public hearing first, and then also a public hearing on the waiver application to waive the necessity to have an election on the district's transition. And that's a common occurrence that districts seek this waiver and receive it from the State Board of Education. If there are any changes that come to the map, so after November 14th, members of the public, members of the board may say, we want to see some changes to these maps. We'll certainly make sure to incorporate any changes and have those posted at least 7 days in advance of the December 12th meeting. So by no means are the maps that get posted on November 14th the only maps that you will see. If there are comments, if there are changes that get suggested, that will certainly be part of this process. The rest of the dates are just kind of different approval processes that have to happen from the County Committee on School District Organization and the State Board of Education to get this wrapped up for the November 2020 election. The next item on your agenda after the public hearing is just a resolution to approve the criteria. So we summarized this on the slide in terms of what we're going to be looking at, assuming the board approves that resolution in a few moments. That some of these are legal requirements that are laid out, that each area has to be roughly equal in terms of the total population, that they have to be drawn in a manner that complies with the Federal Voting Rights Act, that they shall be contiguous and compact as possible. Communities of interest should be respected. We're going to consider other jurisdictional boundaries as much as possible. We're going to look at having schools be represented by more than one trustee to the extent possible, and also look at it to the extent possible and as permitted under the law, avoid having pairings of trustees in the same area. Again, that's on the list of priorities, but it's the last of the list of priorities. Just a little bit of background on the district's demographic data. We're going to be using the 2010 census data for this exercise to identify roughly five roughly equal areas in terms of total population. So you can see 108,603 people as of the 2010 census, which means 5 roughly equal areas and 21,700 and change. We'll have to look at these numbers again after the 2020 census data is released in about April of 2021 to see if there's been any shifts in population that would require us to make adjustments to get back under the 10% variance that were allowed between the largest and smallest areas. You can see the map on the left-hand side of the slide just identifies the different communities within the boundaries of the school district. On the right-hand side, we have tables identifying the different ethnic groups based on total population and population 18 and over. The 2 largest groups are the Hispanic, Latino, and Asian populations at about 44% each. The next largest group is the white population at 8% there. A little bit more updated information that we'll also be using on the following slide is citizen voting age population data. So this is an estimate of folks who are 18 and over and citizens of the United States. It's based on the American Community Survey, which does a sampling of the population every year. And they aggregate this into a 5-year rolling average. So the most recent data is from 2013 through 2017. And so what you see on the map on the right-hand side are areas of increased concentration for the Hispanic Latino community. You can see where that's in like the Puente area, as well as the South San Jose Hills areas. So that's where the higher concentration of Latino citizen voting age population is. You can see at just under 38%. It's the second largest of the protected classes within the district. And then the next map looks at the Asian citizen voting age population. So the darker blue areas show a higher concentration of Asian citizen voting age population. You can see that in the northern Walnut area, as well as in the Rowland Hills areas. And that population is just under 46% of the district's citizen voting age population. So with that kind of background in terms of the demographics, the questions for tonight, or the input we're seeking this afternoon, is how should these lines be drawn as we're looking to create these 5 roughly equal population voting areas. And so as we get that public input, as well as from the board, you know, what kind of things are helpful to hear, what kind of types of input are helpful. You know, I think this neighborhood and that neighborhood should be together in one trustee area, or conversely, I don't think those 2 neighborhoods should be in the same trustee area. What kind of dividing lines might make sense? Not interstate, but Highway 60, with Colima, Nogales, are those good dividing lines, or are they not good dividing lines? Sometimes a major street may look like a good dividing line to an outsider, but in reality, both sides of that major road are really one community. So if there's any information that folks want to share about that, that's helpful as well. Looking at, you know, all of a particular community should be in one area, all of a particular attendance boundary should be in one area or broken up across multiple areas. As we talked about, one of the criteria is to try to have as many schools, have as many voices on the board as possible through this process. So that's one of the board's criteria that we will talk about as well. So with that, certainly open it up for questions or the public hearing for members of the public to provide their input.
Any questions? I have a question. You indicated that in April, around April 2021, that we'll have to go through the census process again of looking at the data and everything. And that was one of the concerns of the board with doing this at this time when there's a census just getting ready to happen in a few months, because we're going to have to incur a lot of cost again to go through that process when we look at the data again and get check to make sure the maps and everything are okay?
So it's really a two-step exercise that you would take starting in about April of 2021. Is first you're going to see is the population in balance enough to be under that 10% threshold? If the answer is yes, then you're done. You don't have to do anything else. It's only if the population is outside that 10% variance would you have to make any changes. And so we'll have to see, are there areas that have grown more or declined more than other parts of the district at that point in time. The process of public hearings, there's not the same at this point in time, same requirement for the same number of public hearings. There's no pre-map public hearings that are part of the adjustment process. It's a simpler process when you make adjustments to the lines after the census than it is the first time you establish these lines.
But we would still need to contract with an agency such as yours or legal services in order to take care of that for us, right?
Unfortunately or fortunately, yes.
Thank you.
But you would be dealing with statistics that are based on 10 years ago, approximately 10 years ago, when you do the maps.
Right now we are using, for the total population information that is almost 10 years old. Correct?
I have a question. If we wish to include a couple more of the informational meetings in other areas, could those be added to the schedule, or is that schedule the way it is and can't be changed? They're not hearings, but I'm saying we've done the informational meetings twice in La Puente that I've been to. And we may have a couple other communities that we want to make sure are included.
We have a number of meetings that have already taken place across our district and a number of that are still scheduled. So what was presented on the slide were the meetings that are the public hearings for the board. But like I held a meeting this morning. So there are meetings that are happening across our community.
And I just want to make one thing clear that Dr. Mitchell met with representatives of all the PTAs throughout the district, including the North Side. And one of the comments that one of the individuals made was, does this mean that I can run for school board now? And I just want to make it clear that this doesn't change it. Right now, anybody can run for school board that lives within the district that's eligible to run. And for some reason, they thought this is going to enable them to run. And they're able to run right now.
Gary?
Yeah, for page 6 and 7 for district demographic map, are you able to provide? Are you able to provide the map with the numbers of the voter of each area? And right now, these maps are percentage, and there's not actual number, so there's maybe a large percentage and very low number of voters. Not today, in the future, are you able to provide us the?
Sure. We can provide a map that could be posted on the website. It would be a large size map in order to see all those numbers, but we certainly have done that in the past where we can show the concentration number or concentration percentages with the total population within each of those blocks, because each of those funny shaped things that's colored in is a census block, so we can certainly do that.
Could you explain that even though we're talking about voters, that it does not strictly mean voters, it means population?
Right, so our 108,000 population that we're using as our numerator in this equation is everybody who lives in the district as of April 1st, 2010, when the census was conducted, regardless of age, or citizenship status, or ability to vote. So that's our numerator, but we do use this additional layer of data, which is an estimate of citizen voting age population, which is a little bit more recent, but it's not the numerator in our equation of equal areas.
One of the questions that continues to come up from constituents is the fact of, by going to districts, what if someone from one district no one comes out to run from a particular district, what happens? And can you please explain that question again?
I will let Mr. Wankart here, who is the expert on that, do that part.
If nobody files papers to run in a particular trustee area, then a vacancy is declared, and then the board would appoint somebody from that area, and they would take office when the term begins, typically in December.
And if only one person from each district comes out to run, then it's just the standard, same as it currently is at large, where there doesn't have to be an election.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
But then it might be good for you to explain to you that this election will be just for two. Well, first we'll decide the districts, but in the 2020 election, we're just electing 2 board members. Is that correct?
That's correct. And then there'll be 3 up for election in 2022.
Thanks.
Any more questions?
I just wanted to say, make sure that folks in the audience know that we do have translators available, and so I'm asking them to please come to the podium to make sure that we don't have any language loss. There were signs that were posted, but if you could please come and introduce yourself. My name is Sandra Guzman, and I'm the district Spanish translator here, available to interpret for Spanish if anybody needs translation in Spanish. Buenas tardes, soy Sandra Guzmán, soy el intérprete en español del distrito y estoy aquí para servir a cualquier persona que necesite traducción en español en esta audiencia.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Gloria Basulto, también soy traductora del distrito aquí en Rowland. Estamos presentes para proveer traducción para cualquier persona que lo necesite durante la audiencia.
My name is Nikki. I'm Mandarin Chinese interpreter. There's anyone need a Mandarin Chinese interpreter here? 我是中文翻译，有任何需要中文翻译吗？
안녕하세요. 혹시 여기서 한국 언어로 통역해 주시면 저한테 말씀해 주세요.
We will start the public hearing. The public hearing is for all interested parties to provide comments on the above-mentioned item. Hearing is open at 4:21 p.m. Joshua Mady.
Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Maddock. I am a 35-year resident of Rowland Heights. I've lived on the I represent the interests of the 18700 block of Honorary Street. The reason why I'm bringing that up is it's a small partition of about 7 households, which may very well be mistakenly put in the Killian District, when we're more logically to be put in wherever Kelly Avenue, south of Colina Avenue should be. So other than that, keep up the good work, and I'm sure we're in the Trustee District.
Thank you.
Hi folks, I'm Roy Humphreys here, and one of the questions that we have here today, why are we here? And first of all, the reason why we're here is on June 6th, 2019, I submitted to Superintendent Mitchell a letter requesting that this very subject be put on the agenda for discussion. And I received a comment back from her on June 17th, 2019. Hey, your request is denied because we addressed it on this number SO 1781 and so forth, in which I took a look and I downloaded the thing. I got some comments on here about that. But something that was troubling is if we go to the bottom of the first page, it says that the board directs the superintendent to immediately initiate the legal action processes for establishing the trustee areas. And it goes on 2 more times on this here. And guess what? I did submit a request of the Public Records Act to the superintendent, which she has refused to comply with. Thank you. But we have to, what is the meaning of immediate? Mr. Mountain, I think he has a master's degree. What does immediate mean to you? We have PhD up here, superintendent. What does immediate mean? The people on this side of the microphone, immediate means like, get it done. It should be. And here we are 2 years out. and it's still haven't, and that's 16 years after 2001, and we can quibble over the exact start date on that, but this goes to show you the attitude of this. By the way, I have copies of all that stuff that you can take a look at if you care to. And but for, and I'm sorry, he was supposed to be here, he's going to be here, Carlos Perez. Anybody know about Carlos Perez? Well, he's an attorney at law. That's also, and but for his filing demand, and there are a bunch of other legal stuff that I don't know, talk to an attorney about that. Guess what? This word immediate, what's immediate? 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm dead, I'm gone. But that's the look we're looking at for the term of immediate, but that's why we're here today, is because of him. It wasn't for him, forget about it. And what are we talking about? Voting rights. 1965, California is an extension of the 1965 voters' rights and all that civil rights stuff. But people forfeited their lives for that. Yet the board up here, your immediate, she probably works for you. So if we want to look for a fault, just look at what we have up here. And then we have Ms. Pride talking, oh my goodness, if we do this now, 2 years after immediate.
Talking about the criteria of the map.
2 years after immediate.
Criteria of the map is the
Criteria of the map. We're talking about while we're here, that 2 years after, we wouldn't be here for any of this. And talk about the maps. Did you? The attorney Perez also submitted, very well done by a professional, of these maps. They posted on the website and so forth. But we're talking about it says something on, oh, it's going to cost money. What is the price of the vote?
Again, the map.
The maps.
Subject.
Yeah.
If you'd like to give your input on the map.
About that, just use the maps that he has, and you're sitting on $40 to $50 billion according to Shay Lohman. So let's not be talking about cost of anything. What is the cost of democracy? This is shameful, and the way the North has been marginalized is shameful. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to come and speak on the subject? Hearing will be closed at 4:25 p.m. We will move on to the discussion action. May I have a motion and a second on item 4A to adopt resolution SO 1920-05, establishing criteria for developing trustee area boundaries.
I make a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Okay. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will take a short break for recess at this time to reset the room furniture.